Hare Krishna, and we're continuing with Shri Īśopaniṣad. We're on page number 18, mantra 2. Kurvan eveha karmani jijivishe chatam samaha evam tvai nanyate tosti nakarma lipyate nare. Kurvan, doing continuously. Eva, thus. Iha, during this span of life. Karmani, work. Jijivishet, one should desire to live. Shatam, 100. Samaha, years. Evam, so living. Tvai, unto you. Na, no. Anyatha, alternative. Ita, from this path. Asti, there is. Na, not. Karma, work. Lipyate, can be bound. Nare, unto a man. Translation. One may aspire to live for hundreds of years if he continuously goes on doing work in that way, because that sort of work will not bind him to the law of karma, and there is no alternative to this way for man. Purport. No one wants to die, and everyone wants to live for as long as he can drag on. This temperament is not only visible individually, but also it is visible collectively in the community, society, and nation. There is a hard struggle for life in every class of human beings, and the Veda says that this is quite natural for the living being. The living being is eternal by nature, but due to his bondage in the material existence, he has to change his body from one to another. This process is called transmigration of the soul. This transmigration is also called karma bandhana, or being bound by one's own work. The living entity has to work for his livelihood because that is the law of material nature. And if he does not act according to the prescribed duties of his particular life, he transgresses the law of nature, making himself bound more and more in the cycle of birth and death. The cycle of birth and death is present in life other than the human form. When the living entity gets the chance for human life, however, it is his chance to get free from the chain of the law of karma. Karma, akarma, and vikarma are principles very clearly described in the Bhagavad Gita. Actions which are done in terms of the prescribed duties mentioned in the revealed scriptures are called karma. Actions which make one free from the cycle of birth and death are called akarma. And actions which are performed by the misuse of one's freedom, thereby directing oneself toward the lower regions of life, are called vikarma. Of these three categories of activities, the one which makes one free from the cycle of further bondage to karma is preferred by intelligent men. Ordinary men want to perform good work in order to be recognized and to achieve some status in life, in this world, or in heaven. But more advanced men want to be free altogether from the actions and reactions of work. Intelligent men know well that both good and bad works are equally causes of material miseries of life. Therefore, they seek to do work which will free them from the reactions of good and bad work. This freedom from good and bad work is ascertained herewith in Shri Īśopaniṣad. The instruction of Shri Īśopaniṣad is better explained in the Bhagavad Gita, sometimes called the Gītopanishad, the cream of all the Upanishads. We're going to read Bhagavad Gita a little bit later, but we are. In the Bhagavad Gita, the personality of Godhead says that no one can attain the state of Naishkarma or Akarma without beginning the prescribed duties mentioned in the Vedic literature. The Vedic literature can regulate the working energy of the human being in such a way that one can gradually realize the authority of the Supreme Being. When one realizes the authority of the personality of Godhead, it is to be understood that he has attained the stage of positive knowledge. At this purified stage of life, where the modes of nature, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance, cannot act, one is enabled to work on the basis of Naishkarma, or work which does not bind one to the cycle of birth and death. Factually, no one has to do anything other than to render devotional service to the Lord. In the lower stage of life, however, one cannot at once adopt the principles of devotional service, nor can one completely stop reactionary work. A conditioned soul is accustomed to working for sense gratification, for his own self-interest, immediate or extended. An ordinary man wants to work for his own sense enjoyment, and when the principle of sense enjoyment is extended from the individual to include the collective society, nation, or humanity in general, it assumes various attractive names, such as altruism, socialism, communism, nationalism, humanitarianism, etc. These isms are certainly very attractive forms of karma bandhana, the bondage of one's own work. But the Vedic instruction of Sri Īśopaniṣad is as follows. If you actually live for any of the above isms, make them God-centered. There is no harm in becoming a family man, an altruist, socialist, communist, nationalist, or humanitarian, provided all such activities are executed in relation with Īśavasya, the God-centered conception. Haribo! Let's take a moment and really think about this with all the gravity and focus, because this is here the Īśavasya principle is just the peace formula, the formula of success, the ultimate, ultimate success. So, God-centered activities are evaluated in the Bhagavad Gita as being so rich that even a little bit of them can save one from the greatest danger. The greatest danger in life is to glide down again into the evolutionary cycle of birth and death. If some way or another a man misses the spiritual opportunity offered by his human form of life, and thus glides down again into the evolutionary cycle, it must be considered the most regrettable incidents, although a foolish man cannot see this due to his defective senses. Sri Īśopaniṣad advises us, therefore, to exert our energy in the Īśavasya spirit, and in that engagement we may wish to live for many, many years. Otherwise, one's long life is no better than that of a tree, which is also a living being, and which lives for hundreds and hundreds of years. There's no point in living a long time like the trees, or breathing like the bellows, or begetting children like the hog and the dog, or eating like the camel. Even a humble life with God-centered activities is more valuable than the colossal hoax of so-called altruism or socialism without any relation to God. When activities such as altruism are executed in the spirit of Sri Īśopaniṣad, every one of them become a form of karma yoga, as is recommended in the Bhagavad Gita. And that guarantees the executor against the dangers of the evolutionary process of birth and death. Such God-centered activities, even though half-finished, are still good for the executor because they will guarantee him the human form of life in his next birth. In this way, he can have another chance to improve his position on the path of liberation. Right, so mantra 3. Asurya nama te loka andhena tamasavritah tamste pretya bhigachanti ye ke chatmahano jana. Asuryah, meant for the asuras. Nama, famous by the name. Te, those. Loka, planets. Andhena, ignorance. Tamasa, darkness. Avrita, covered by. Tan, there. Te, they. Pretya, after birth. Abhigachanti, do enter into. Ye, anyone. Ke, everyone. Cha, end. Atmahana, the killer of the soul. Jana, persons. Translation. The killer of the soul, whoever he may be, must enter into the planets known as the worlds of the faithless, full of darkness and ignorance. Purport. A human life is distinguished from animal life on account of its heavy responsibilities. Those who are cognizant of these responsibilities and work in that spirit are called suras, the godly. And those who either neglectful of the responsibilities or who have no information about them are called the asuras or demons. There are only these two kinds of human beings all over the universe. In the Rig Veda, it is stated that the suras always aim at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Vishnu and act accordingly. Their ways are as illuminated as the path of the sun. Haribo! The intelligent human beings must always remember that this particular form of body is obtained after an evolution of many millions of years of transmigration of the soul. This material world is sometimes compared with an ocean, and this human body is compared with a solid boat that designed to cross over the ocean. The Vedic scriptures and the acharyas or saintly teachers are compared with expert boatmen, and the facilities of a human body are compared with favorable breezes, which can help the boat smoothly ply to the desired destination. If, with all these facilities, a person does not fully utilize his human form of life for self-realization, such an asura must be considered Atma Hana, a killer of the soul. Let's read that sentence once more. If, with all these facilities, a person does not fully utilize his human life for self-realization, such an asura must be considered Atma Hana, a killer of the soul. The killer of the soul is destined to enter into the darkest region of ignorance, to suffer perpetually. And here is a warning by Sri Īśopaniṣad in clear terms. Right, so the difference between Vedic perspective on hellish planets and some other perspective is that the soul is eternal, and the hellish planets, they don't keep the soul forever. There's no eternal damnation, but if someone really messes up, it can be just for a very, very, very long time. There are swine, dogs, camels, asses, etc., whose economic necessities are just as important as ours. But the economic problems of these animals are solved under nasty conditions, while the human being is given all facilities for comfortable life by the laws of nature, because the human form of life is more important than an animal life. Why is a highly placed servant given all the facilities of comfortable life rather than an ordinary clerk? The answer is that the highly placed officer has to discharge duties of a higher nature. Similarly, the human being has higher duties in life than the animals who are engaged always in the business of feeding their hungry stomachs. The modern soul-killing civilization, oh Krishna, the modern soul-killing civilization has only increased the problems of a hungry stomach. We approach some polished animal, a modern civilized man, and he says that he wants to work for the satisfaction of the stomach, and there is no necessity for self-realization. But the laws of nature are so cruel that in spite of his eagerness to work hard for his stomach, there is always the question of unemployment, even after denouncing the prospect of self-realization. We are given this human form of life not to work hard like the ass, the swine, and the dog, but to attain the highest perfection of life. If we do not care for self-realization, it is by the law of nature that we have to work very hard, even though we do not want to do so. In this age, the human being has been forced to work hard like the ass and the bull, pulling carts. These are some of the examples of the regions where an asura is sent to work, revealed by this verse of Sri Īśopaniṣad. If a man fails to discharge his duties as a human being, he is forced to transmigrate to the planets called Asurya, in the degraded species of life, to work hard in ignorance and darkness. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is also stated that the half self-realized man, who in their previous life could not complete the process of approaching Godhead, but had sincerely tried for it. In other words, those who failed to attain success in realizing their relation with God are given the chance of appearing in the family of Shuchi and Srimata. Shuchi means a spiritually advanced Brahmana, and Srimata means a Vaishya, or a member of the mercantile community. This means that such fallen candidates are given a better chance for cultivating self-realization on account of their sincere efforts in past lives. If the fallen candidates are given the chance of taking birth in respectable, noble families, we can hardly imagine the state of those who have completely achieved success in the attempt. Simply to make an attempt for realizing God is to guarantee that the next birth will be in a noble family. But those who do not make any such attempt at all, and who want to be covered by illusion, too materialistic and attached to material enjoyment, must enter into the darkest region of hell, as is confirmed in all the Vedic literature. Such materialistic asuras sometimes make a show of religiousness with the ultimate aim of material prosperity. We have seen those, right? The Bhagavad Gita, however, rebukes them as man called great on the strength of false perfection, empowered by the votes of the ignorant and by material wealth. Such asuras devoid of self-realization and the conception of Īśopaniṣad, the Lord, are sure to enter into the darkest regions. The conclusion is that we are not meant only for solving economic problems on a tottering platform, but we are also meant for solving the problems of the material life into which we have been placed by the conditions of nature. Jai, we're going to continue tomorrow with mantra 4. Thank you so much for tuning in, and the link to this book is in the description. And if you have noticed that the kids were screaming in the background, they're just having fun. So we'll record tomorrow in some other time when the kids are studying. So thank you so much for tuning in again, and we shall see you. Hare Krishna.